All right, and we are live with the Brown Bag Business Chat. Today, we are talking Pinterest with Carol Stephen, the self-styled queen of Pinterest. I don't know, maybe that's just Bridget who calls you that.
Oh, no, I don't call myself that. But thank you, Bridget.
I'm just messing with it. Bridget does call you the queen of Pinterest. So we're going to talk Pinterest. Want to know everything there is to know about Pinterest, especially for small business owners. I think that social media by itself can be very scary for anyone who didn't grow up with it, but especially for small business owners, because they're not just talking about themselves anymore. Suddenly their business is on the line, so to speak. And I think these visual mediums, these visual networks like Pinterest and Instagram, I feel like they can be even more intimidating to small business owners than Facebook or Twitter. Huh. So give us a brief overview. Tell us about Pinterest. What is it? What does it do? Why do businesses need to be there?
Okay, Pinterest has been around for a few years. It's a social network. It allows you to visually share and discover new interests. So there is a discovery engine, which I don't think Pinterest itself would say that it is, but it is a discovery engine.
So when you say discovery engine, what do you mean?
I mean, you may not really know what you want, but you can go into Pinterest and you can use it like Google. So you can search and it will lead you.
Oh, I see.
It will help you discover what it is you want. So I don't want to get into the details too much before really talking about more of a definition of Pinterest.
Okay. So yeah, I interrupted your definition. Go ahead. How does it work?
Okay. It works because you can pin things, and a pin is anything that you find online. So it could be, say, a collection of your favorite beers. Could be each one of those could be a pin. It's like a bookmark, but it's a visual bookmark. And then a board is how you organize your pins on Pinterest. So going back to the beer example, if you had a bunch of different beers that you like, you could have a beer board, and then each particular brewery, say, could be a separate pin.
Okay. So it lets you to collect content together in one place. And say, okay, here's everything that has to do with this subject. And then so what you're saying is people can go in there and start searching for that stuff. Exactly. And so someone who's interested in beer, using our 21 and over example, anyone who's interested in beer could say, okay, I'm just searching for beer in general. And then maybe they stumble across your beer board.
Exactly. But of course, the way they would stumble across it, we'll talk about that a little later.
Sure.
But so for a brewery or anybody, you would want to use Pinterest to showcase your products and services and use visual, beautiful images.
So do you always want to have like the best, highest quality images? Or what if you're a small business, you're on a shoestring budget, you can't come up with incredible images? Can you still have pretty okay images, like something you would take with your iPhone?
Exactly. Everybody has a phone now, and everyone's phone, almost without exception, takes beautiful images. So there is no reason not to have a beautiful image. You could have a close-up of a label on your beer, a bunch of beers all in a row lined up. You can use an interesting picture.
I'm loving this analogy we're using. So businesses can use it to display products. Is that pretty common, or do you see them displaying other things as well?
I think it's about the lifestyle. So say you are a brewery and you know your customers pretty well, and there's other things that your customers are interested in. So that could be local events happening, or a park that's nearby, or restaurants that sell your beer could also be things to pin. Okay.
And so that allows you to interact with other businesses as well. So someone, like you said, the restaurants, you could pin stuff that so you can share pins, right? And interact with other people on Pinterest. It's not just, hey, everyone look at my stuff.
You can interact with other people, although it's not used that way too much.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I've heard in talks at Pinterest headquarters, they say that it's not really a social network, but I would tend to disagree. Yes, they say that, but I would tend to disagree with that description because it can be used socially.
Okay. So, yeah, because I think that when most people think of Pinterest, they kind of think of it as lumped in with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and they think of it as a social network, but Pinterest doesn't want you thinking that way.
They say that it's more like a discovery engine. So, yeah, they don't really describe it that way. And there is generally less engagement on Pinterest.
Oh, there is. Okay. So it's, I think this is especially important because I think when small business owners come in and start something like Facebook or Twitter, and they're used to maybe their personal Facebook account, and there's all these comments and people are talking, and then they go post something on Facebook, for example, and for their business, and no one's commenting, they get scared. But if that happens on Pinterest, that's okay if the engagement is low, because that's to be expected.
Well, people tend to repin things, and that's when you take a pin and then you share it on your own account. So people do that, say, instead of commenting so much. But on really popular pins, you are going to see comments, and you'll even see spam that you have to get rid of.
Oh, how wonderful.
If you're really successful, you'll get more spam.
That's the sign of success when you finally start getting.
Yeah, it is.
That's funny. So, what makes, we've kind of talked about this already, but what really makes these visually oriented social networks different? I mean, is it just the visual side of it, or is there more to it?
It's really, really fun. It's 357% more fun, and that's scientifically proven.
Yeah.
Don't ask for the source. But seriously, people do stay on Pinterest a lot longer than other social networking sites. So people stay on there for hours. And by people, I mean, it's mostly women on Pinterest. It's 80% women. And when it started, it was 90% women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely good to know that this is definitely a demographically oriented site, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. So, anything that appeals to women is a sure bet. So things like
that's good to know.
Worst restaurants, anybody in the wedding mafia, which I would include wedding planners, resorts, bed and breakfast, people who sell flowers. Anybody like that. Clothing brands can gain a lot because of the demographic as well. It trends a little younger. So they call it millennial moms. That is
okay. Gotcha. Well, I got to tell you, you mentioned the wedding thing, and I am planning a wedding right now. We are planning a wedding, and that is where we found a lot of stuff. Is we spent time going through, or she spent time going through Pinterest and finding color schemes, finding dresses. So I think you're absolutely right. People use it as a resource. They don't use it they use it differently, I think, than Facebook or Twitter, where maybe you're just going to hang out. I think some people do, like you say, spend hours on there just pinning stuff and looking at beautiful things. But I think it really is used by a lot of people as a resource.
It really is. So it's like, I saw this dress. I want to come back and take a closer look at it later. And another thing you can do is create private boards. So that's something that you don't have to share with the public. So say you are planning a wedding, you don't want people to know about it. You could have private boards.
Yeah. So it's almost like a way for you to manage content in a way. So your own personal content.
Exactly.
Okay. Exactly. Cool. So what do you think Pinterest does best? Because there are other visually oriented social media networks out there, like Instagram or even Snapchat would be kind of visually oriented. So what does Pinterest do best?
Well, like I said, the restaurants are really good. Also, it's not hashtag driven like Instagram is.
Yeah.
Instagram also tends to trend even younger.
Oh, okay.
So the demographic on Pinterest, they're not just there to share pictures. They want to buy things.
Oh,
That's really important for a business to know.
Yes, I would say
Right?
so. Yeah, you trend a little too young, and then they're not going to have much buying power. So it sounds
Exactly.
like Pinterest is the like you said, millennials who are starting to come into their own. They've been working for maybe 5 years, even 10 years, possibly, and they're ready to. They've got some disposable income finally.
That's right. And they want to spend it because they're there for hours.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, might skip a few questions here. So, is Pinterest a good place for just promotional stuff, or how would a business use it? I guess is what I'm asking. So, because I know with social media, you hear rules like 80-20 or 70-20-10, stuff like that, and sharing mostly other people's stuff. But does Pinterest follow the same kind of rules? Is it good to share other people's stuff and also promote your products?
I think so. If you're sharing things around a lifestyle, you can do that because you still want to bring people in. If you sell only your own stuff or promote only your own stuff, then you're not going to get a lot of new followers unless your stuff is so fascinating or you're a celebrity. So I think to bring people in, it's really good to share other things.
Yeah. Would it be okay for a business to share stuff like that from other businesses or a celebrity or something like that if it fell in line?
Yeah. Oh, sure. People generally love if you share pins.
Yeah, absolutely. And our friend Bridget is here. She's the one who styled you the queen of Pinterest. So I feel like we need to add that to your Twitter profile. So okay, great. So how do you I'd love to hear about how you do this on your personal account and how you do this for accounts you run. How do you decide what to pin? Like, how do you manage the content and say, this is the one, this is what I want to pin?
Well, for one thing, it has to be a beautiful picture. And there's also a perfect, a long pin. And then you also want to describe whatever it is really well so that people find you and search.
Okay.
So, yeah, the image is the first thing to start with. And I would just go on Pinterest and search for what it is you're looking for. And you might not know exactly what that is.
Right. So you mentioned a long pin. Is that different from a regular size pin?
Long and skinny is what I would call it on Pinterest.
Okay.
Those are the ones that get the most repins.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
That's good to know. And we want repins, right? Repins are good.
Yes, you do want repins. The more repins, the better.
Okay, gotcha. So do you ever pull content from other places? Do you ever find pictures or even take your own pictures and share them?
The time. You can do a board that's based on location. So you can put up your own pin and then you can say where it is. So I have a couple of those boards that are very local, that are just places around where I live.
Okay.
So you could do that especially if you're a brick and mortar store, you might want to have, local things for tourists to see, for example.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. So, and Bridget is mentioning keyword-rich descriptions.
Yes.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about what you have to do? Because you're not just throwing an image up there, right? You're putting some other stuff around.
Well, people do that all the time. People put up images without any description, and so that's one of the things that I need to educate businesses to do. Is you have to put yourself in the mind of the person doing a search, and what is that person going to look for? If we go back to the beer example, is it a gluten-free beer? Is it a Belgian beer? Say a little more about the beer. Where does it come from? Do you have special hops that you use? You could go on like that. So put that in the description so people can find you.
So now if I'm searching on Google, and there's a description on not within Pinterest, but on a search engine somewhere, and you've got good descriptions on your image, is it possible for it to even come up on a different search engine?
Yes, that's right. They are indexed by Google now.
Oh wow. Okay. So yeah. So
people can find you.
They've always been able to find us. It got me a little worried. But yeah, I think that's one thing that people might not think about when it comes to Pinterest is, even if, and this is kind of falls under the stuff we do, when we put images on websites, there's especially within WordPress anyway, there's space to put in descriptions and titles, captions and stuff like that. And I think it's easy to skip over that part of the process,
right?
And forget that, hey, someone might be coming to my website. They might be a Pinterest fanatic and they want to share my stuff on Pinterest, and then they click the button to go do so. And because I haven't set up my images right, now that it looks crappy when they go to share it.
Exactly. So you want to always think about having something that's shareable on Pinterest, if that's where you want your images to end up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would challenge people to look at, if you think that people aren't sharing your content on Pinterest, I would say take another look at your analytics and see what's going on, because I think you would be surprised at how often things are being shared on social media networks that you're not even aware that people are using with your content.
Exactly. And what I would do is I would do a search for something similar to what you're selling.
Yeah.
And see what kind of description is in that pin.
Absolutely.
Because the most popular pins are going to come up at the top when you do a search.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, and especially doing it from maybe someone else's computer, or doing it from at the very least like an incognito window, so that it's not using your data when you do the search, and it's you're getting a better idea of what comes up when a random person searches. So, okay. So let's talk frequency. How often do you, and I know this is something that just in the social media world, you get so many different opinions, and you hear, here's when you got to post, here's how often you have to pin, do this, do that. Make sure it's at 4 a.m. and 8 p.m. and noon. But if you're on the West Coast, then it needs to be 3 p.m. But if you're in Europe, you got to think 7. So it's all over the place. What do you have any recommendations about how often to pin, or frequency, or times?
Yes,
or
I do. Actually, okay. I have this from the first engineer at Pinterest.
Okay.
When I was up there at one of the talks, I got to talk to him directly.
Oh, wow.
He said, what's the best time to pin? And this is in a room full of engineers, and he said 6 p.m.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that is right from the camel's
from the horse's mouth, from the from some large quadruped's mouth. Yeah, that's great. And so it was there. Did he explain any further about it? Like that's what their analytics was showing, or that was just like, here it is.
Yes, that is when the most people are on Pinterest.
Okay.
So people get home. They get home from work. They're maybe having a snack or eating dinner, and they're on Pinterest.
Yeah.
So 6 p.m. if you can only pin at one time during the day, and you're pinning live and not scheduling, 6 p.m.
Okay. So let's get back to the frequency question. How often are you pinning? Is it once a day? Is it several times a day, or does it depend on the account?
I try to pin at least a couple times a day, and during each session, about 4 pins or more.
Okay.
So maybe 8 pins a day.
So it's pretty frequent.
You can space those pins out if you use a scheduler. So you could say, pin 1 every hour during the evening hours in particular. That tends to be when the most people are on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I think that that's a pretty high frequency compared to some other social networks, because if you post it on Facebook 8 times a day, I don't know how people would feel about that.
That's right. You could get unfriended. or unfollowed or unfanned.
I feel like I'm getting unfriended right now.
I think that I would probably use a scheduler if you had a lot of pins that were going to come out.
Okay. So, can you share other types of media? So if you're doing Pinterest, I think those of us who know about it, or if you even know anything about it, it's visually oriented, it's images. But can you share other types of media? Can you share podcasts or anything like that?
You can, but I would still try to get an image to go with the podcast. I see a lot of good stuff all the time, like say it's a study. And, I really wish everybody would have images, so it would just make it so much easier to share. But you can get your own image, put it up there, and then put in the URL, and then that will make people want to share it more, want to repin it more.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So but you don't have to limit yourself to an image but it's best because of the way it's put together to have an image together.
Yeah, it is a visual, so it's best to have an image.
Gotcha. All right. So we talked a little bit about optimizing. So do you do any sort of like keyword research or anything like that when you're thinking about terms to use to describe an image, or do you just kind of go with your gut on these ones?
If you're sharing, say, a blog post, and you have a headline, you can use that same headline if you've already optimized it, for example.
Oh, okay.
And another thing is I tend to like full descriptions, full sentences on Pinterest rather than just a couple words like you might see, say,
really?
Instagram.
So why is that? Why would you want more on there?
Well, there is a sweet spot, and I won't get into that too much because we don't want it to be too long. But there is, having a full sentence and saying this is what the pin is about. This is what you'll find there. I tend to think those get the most repins.
Okay. It's funny. I think there's this idea, just kind of generally when we think of content, that I think it's easy to get this idea that shorter is better. People aren't going to read a long blog post. They're not going to read a long page. They're not going to look at a long, Pinterest description. But I think you're right that if people are spending hours and hours on Pinterest, they are going to read these long descriptions. That's why they're there.
Exactly. And especially if, I like to tell them what they're going to find when they click through a pin. So if you're going to find not much or just an image, then I'll tell them. Then they don't need to bother to click through. I will tell them that. Yeah.
So I just think it's easy. We shouldn't shy away from longer form content in general, because we might scare some people off, but the people who are going to stick around anyway, they're going to want to dig deeper into things, whether it be Pinterest or blog posts or whatever.
Exactly. You will find your audience once you keep at it for a while.
Yeah. So let's talk boards a little bit. How many, is there a limit to boards you can have? Can you just create boards ad infinitum? How many do you think someone should have?
I usually tell people to start with a minimum of 5 boards.
Okay.
Before you start going out and following hundreds of people.
And
have 5 boards and put 5 pins on each board. So that's 25 pins.
Okay. Yeah, because the worst thing is when you look at someone's profile and you look at a board and you can see there's just 1 pin on there.
Oh, that's the worst.
You're like,
don't do that.
It just looks so god awful. You're like,
or if you have a new board, you can you can move your boards around. So you can put the new board down at the bottom so people won't see it when they come to your account.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then you can add to it later.
Do you ever feel like there is such a thing as too many boards? Like people just go crazy?
Some people have hundreds of boards, and it's like they're trying to get everybody in the world to follow them. And it doesn't work that way.
So it's better to target and try to think about, okay, who's my audience? What are the boards that they really want? Or the content, rather, that they're looking for, and then create a small set of boards that really works best for them.
Right. And also realize that most people are on mobile. So if they're on their phone, what are they going to see first?
Yeah.
Put those boards way up at the top.
That's a good point. So most people who are, when they're on Pinterest, they're probably not sitting at home on their computer. They're looking at it through a mobile device.
Right. And I use it that way too myself, but I use it a little differently than other people do.
Right.
So I have a secret board, and that is for me to look at later. And I can just pin to that board if I'm out, say I'm at the grocery store waiting in line, I can pin to my secret board. And then later when I get home, I can really investigate that pin and make sure it doesn't go to something spammy, because I don't want to share spam, of course.
Right.
And I want to tell people what's at the other end of that pin.
So there needs to be a little bit of vetting, a kind of a vetting process that goes on, and not just pinning random things, assuming that they're going to work right or be good content.
Exactly.
Okay.
But do realize that most people are on mobile, so they're going to see your top boards first, what we used to call above the fold.
Right. And I think that term, I like to think that, I'm willing to scroll. I'll scroll on anything. So you don't have to worry as much about above the fold, but I think it does still apply. Absolutely. And the first thing that people see is the first impression. And if you've got, a board that looks like crap at the beginning, you've made a bad first impression.
Exactly. And then you can also change your board covers. That's another thing we hadn't really talked about. But
okay, sure.
The board cover should be beautiful, as well as the pins on that particular board. So pick something on each board that really represent what the board is about.
Okay. And that's a good point.
Sorry, but there's also a description that goes along with each board.
Mm-hmm.
So it's another chance for you to use those keywords.
Yeah, for sure. So should each board do a little keyword optimization there if you can, and even think about what do I really want people to know about this content, not just marketing and then just leave it there?
Exactly. So you can and you can change it later too, but I would not just leave it blank. I would add in as many keywords as possible on every board so that people can find you. And also don't name the boards strange things that people are not going to be able to find and search. Unless you have some kind of a long tail keyword and you already know that people are searching for something, then, you can rename that board with your long tail keyword.
Okay. So I think that's good too. I think it's easy to forget that, just because I want to be a little quirky or something like that with my names, or our business is a little, little strange. I might still want to think about, when I'm naming my boards or putting in a description, being careful with that, because how are people searching for this? If I make something that's totally off the wall, they might never find it.
Exactly. So you want people to find it. And that leads me to another thing, is that you can delete a pin. If it's not getting any traffic, you delete it and you repin it.
Oh, okay.
And so when you repin, it goes up to the top.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a nice little secret there. If it's not working out, just get rid of it and start over.
Yeah. Say you didn't know what time to pin and then it didn't get any traffic, or you forgot to put in your keywords, just repin it.
Okay. That's good to know. All right. And so we got a few more minutes, so I'll just do one last question. How do you measure success on Pinterest? Does Pinterest have like analytics that you can use, or is there a way of telling that, okay, we're getting visitors to our site and so forth from Pinterest? Like, how do you tell if you're doing well with Pinterest?
It has analytics built right in if you sign up as a business. And it's pretty easy to change if you have a personal account to switch your personal account and make it a business account.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. So now if someone converts their account like that, does that mean that they're going to keep their followers and their pins and everything?
Yep. You still keep your followers, your pins. You can change the name even, and you'll still keep your followers and your pins.
Now, they might not stick around once you become a business, but you got them for a little while.
Right.
Oh. Okay, well, great. Well, do you have any last thoughts on Pinterest that you want to share with us?
I think people shouldn't overthink it too much. I think they should just get started and really have fun with it and do a search on something you like. And also, don't be afraid to pin things that are interesting to you personally. Because you never know, say your organization, your business likes to donate to, say, the cancer organization.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and have a board about that. Because
Yeah,
that could be what differentiates you.
That's a good point. I think that applies more broadly too, because I think it's really easy for people to say, well, it's my business account. I shouldn't be sharing these personal things, even and forgetting that people want to connect to personal things. They want to see stuff that maybe leaves you a little vulnerable, but lets them see that you're a human too.
Exactly. Or you donate to dogs in need, then you have a board on dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining
welcome.
us today on the BBG. Even though the internet gods frowned upon us, we still were able to get your audio. So
Okay, great.
I appreciate your time. And next week we're going to be talking with Roxanne. We're going to be talking to her about social media, and we'll probably get some more specifics. But we're gonna have fun next week. So join us next time, folks. And thanks again, Carol. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.